everybody. Welcome to the Alex Quest Daily Show. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to give this a listen. It is January 25th, 2022. That is a Tuesday. And I'm coming at you from my not so glorious office that I use as my studio, but hopefully it's acceptable for those listening out there. Just give you a little insider baseball there. But overall, everything's going good on this side. I hope things going well on the other side. And I'm coming at you, bringing you another great daily show where I break down an article. Hopefully today is not going to be as long as yesterday. Yesterday unintentionally went over an hour talking about ID.me partnering up with the IRS and how ID.me is basically creating the public-private partnership that a lot of people on the right have been warning about is pure fascism, and it's already infiltrated states, yada, yada, yada. But I got to do some housekeeping with that part of it because I was going through the article and like a doofus, I did not do my own research and come up with all the people and all the explanations that were there because there were 3 investors that were inside of that article that invested a lot of money. I think 100 billion, a few 10 billion, like a lot of money that were invested into 100 billion might be hyperbole. I probably should have the article pulled up, but again, I'm a dummy. I'll search for that as I'm talking. But they invested a lot of money into all of this stuff, into ID.me, I guess hedging their bets that this was going to be the group that wins. And ID.me is winning. And the groups were Viking Global Investors, Softbank Group, and Fortress Investing. So I said yesterday I would do a little research. I would look to see where they pop up, what they're all about. And I had a little bit of a hunch, just a little bit one, that these groups, because this objective seems so obtrusive and seems like it's something where it's trying to control our lives, I had a hunch that they were involved with the World Economic Forum. Now, the World Economic Forum, for those that don't know, is a group of the elites, the thinkers, the politicians, the wealthy that get together in Davos. I believe it's Davos, Switzerland or something like that. Davos, and they talk about how they're going to reshape the world. And to the point where John Kerry was there last time, and he's now our Secretary of Energy, I think, or something right now. I don't know what the hell John Kerry does. I think he's Secretary of Energy, and he flies around on a private jet talking about climate change. That guy's awesome. And I think last time they had Xi Jinping, the chairman or president, whatever, of the People's Republic of China, the Chinese Communist Party, speak there. So that says a lot with who they're having talking there. But yes, I found it. 100 million in funding from Viking Global Investors and Softbank Group, Chief Executive Officer Marcelo Klur, and followed by an additional 100 million in debt from Fortress Investment Group LLC in September. Okay, so that's a lot of money getting thrown around. There's 200 million between these 3. Now, granted, the Softbank Group, it's a CEO, so it's his money, but it's a big indicator. But lo and behold, I looked up, again, if they were involved in World Economic Forum, and it's not hard to find. World Economic Forum is not shy about who is with them. All you have to do is go on www.weforum.org, and you'll find their partners, and it's a whole long list, and they are very open about who partners with them, who works with them. So it's not tricky to find. And what I found is Viking Global Investors, they're one. Softbank Group, they're also one. And I couldn't find Fortress. So I just went in trusty rusty, I guess Bing, because I use the Microsoft Edge here. I went in Bing on my computer and I typed in Fortress Investment or whatever they are, Fortress Investment Group, parent company. And guess what I found? Softbank Group is their parent company. So they are involved in the World Economic Forum. And that also means that 100 million from Fortress, which made it seem like it wasn't Softbank, only their CEO gave it. Yeah, Softbank actually donated that. So There's a lot of trickiness that goes on, but all it is quick searches. If you know what you're searching for, you can find all this stuff. So I'm bringing up World Economic Forum. And again, why is it bad? What does the World Economic Forum want? Well, they want to reshape the world. They are the ones that brought about the Great Reset talk. They just let out a new talk on the Great Narrative. And it's essentially about reshaping capitalism, getting rid of capitalism as we know it, attacking the Western way of life in how they want it. And how they want it is in Marxian ways. They push for things like stakeholder capitalism instead of shareholder capitalism, where the company will be more indebted to the workers and the people and give them defined roles in the company instead of the shareholders. Instead of working on making profit, we're going to work on making the world better. Give me a break. The way that these utopian people and these Marxists think is so second grade that it's ridiculous that they have a following. But another tell that all these companies are working for the same thing is what they talk about. And another big thing that the World Economic Forum talk about, besides bringing about Build Back Better, which I've mentioned before, is not a Joe Biden original. When you have guys like Boris Johnson of UK, Justin Trudeau of Canada, Macron of France, Merkel in Germany before she's gone, all using the terms Build Back Better to describe their initiatives for coming out of coronavirus. There's another thing that goes along with Build Back Better, and that is ESG scores. Now, I mentioned this slightly yesterday. I'm going to go over it again real quick. ESG, environmental, social, and corporate governance. Now, I'm reading this from Wikipedia, so take it with a grain of salt, I guess. But Wikipedia has a lot of lefties writing for it, and this is definitely a lefty thing. So when it's weird. When it's a leftist things, you could probably imagine that Wikipedia has a bunch of accurate-ish stuff on it because they don't hide when they think they're right and they're doing the right thing. So they certainly don't hide. There's a ton of references on this one too. It looks like there's 82 references on this one. I didn't check all the references, but normally when there's a boatload of references, it's not, it's not completely foolproof, but it's not great. I mean, it's not foolproof, but it's not terrible. It's better than most on here. So let's go. ESG, an evaluation of a firm's collective consciousness for social and environmental factors. Aha, right there. Collective consciousness. That is a Marxian Hegelian socialist thinking. Collective consciousness. They need people to have collective consciousness to start revolutions. That's Herbert Marcuse. Look up all these people that I'm talking about. You would open your eyes. I'm going to continue with this part. It is typically a score that is compiled from data collected surrounding specific metrics related to intangible assets within the enterprise. It could be considered a form of a corporate social credit score. Corporate social credit score. These three broad categories is termed used to define socially responsible investors, i.e. the investors who consider it important to incorporate their values and concerns, such as environmental governance and community concerns, and then a form of investment decision rather than just potential profitability towards. Okay, so right there, social credit score. That is what China has implemented. So let's all bring this back together. These three companies that are World Economic Forum followers, and I'm going to prove to you, I'm on their websites. They all talk about the ESG and what they have to do towards ESG. These three companies are giving combined $200 million. Sorry, I keep saying billion. 200 million, still a lot of money. $200 million to invest in ID.me, who is trying to get into every single facet of our lives. And they are all talking about ESGs. Now, this is only for corporate. What makes you think that ESG isn't going to find its way into your ID.me app when we have everything on it? And when they're going to know everything about us? And when they're going to know everything about what we say, what we like, what we watch, what we listen to, who we talk to, how we act at work, who's reporting on how we act at work, who's reporting on what we say at work, who's reporting on what we say at our kids' Pop Warner football game or Little League game. There's a lot to think about here, everybody. ESG right now is only in the corporate sector, but they said it's a corporate social credit score. It's how it started in China. And it trickled down into the population. This ID.me is a way for them to try and bring in the social credit score. Back quickly to these companies. So Viking Global Investors, they're part of the combined 100 million with the CEO from Softbank. They have their mission statement. I don't want to read their mission statement. It's all a bunch of fluff, but I'm getting to the investments. The investments tab is where you would have to go to here. It is under, you go right up top, Viking, it's about us. And then next to it is investments. You scroll down and you find the ESG integration. We believe companies that are well-governed, socially responsible, and environmentally conscious are more likely to succeed over time. By incorporating environmental, social, and governance, ESG, factors into our investment framework and firm operations, we can reduce risk, identify opportunities, and promote better investment and business outcomes. Bullshit. What does that have to do with making money? Like, I get it. If you're trying to take advantage of the green market and corner it, sure. That's money making. That's greedy. That doesn't have anything to help. Social. If you're trying to take advantage of BLM and wokeness, sure, to make a quick dime off of it, doesn't mean you actually care. Governance is the part that kind of sticks, because when they say governance, they mean corporate governance. They mean switching older from shareholder capitalism to stakeholder capitalism, which is also a World Economic Forum original. The leader, Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum, his founder, has a book all about stakeholder capitalism. There are articles written on the World Economic Forum website, ranging from, I think, 2017 to up to now. The time is now for stakeholder capitalism. And that is not a good way to run a company. Not a good way to run a company. Let's continue what they have here. Under research, we conduct company-specific and thematic research to compare and consider material ESG topics in our investment process. Engagement. We engage public and private companies on ESG issues, share best practices, and make recommendations. So as they're trying to keep these companies money, they engage and they give advice on what they need to do in order to get better scores. And then governance. We strive to be an informed shareholder and exercise our responsibilities in a manner that serves the best interest of our investors. Let's move on to Softbank. That's another one, a part of the CEO gave 100 million, and then their subsidiary gave 100 million. So they partially gave over 100 million. So let's go here. If you scroll down, where was it? Did I lose the page on ESG? Aha. Sustainability. Here we go. All you got to do, you don't have to click on it. You scroll all the way down, because when you go to their vision and strategy page, you'll see up top, it says sustainability. Actually, you don't have to scroll down. It's on top. Sustainability. Click on sustainability. All there. They're all talking about the ESG stuff on this, on the sustainability side. Environmental initiatives. That is the E. Social initiatives. That is the S. Governance. That is your G. ESG. There we go. They're also talking about it. And then they have related contents, ESG data / external evaluation, sustainability report 2021. It's pretty crazy that they're going all to this. And this is a SoftBank group. This is a giant investor that is out of Japan that is buying into this. It's going to be a matter of time before one of the banks that has ESG goes, you supported the wrong candidate. I don't think we can give you that loan. Oh, you saw what you put on social media the other day? Yeah, interest rate's not going to be as good for you based off your credit, your ESG score. And finally, let's go to Fortress. Fortress Investing, the subsidiary of the parent company of SoftBank, which we just looked at. Not surprising that they will have ESG language in their stuff. It's just bizarre that it's all right out in the open. It is all right out in the open. Again, you go over here, you click responsibility, responsible investing right up in front. Responsible investing involves incorporating environmental, social, and governance, ESG, considerations in our investment decision-making process. ESG considerations help us better understand, evaluate, and anticipate certain non-financial risks. We also seek to incorporate ESG best practices in our firm-level management. On behalf of the firm, our employees, and our investors, we identify ESG risks and rewards while seeking to achieve attractive risk-adjusted returns in our investment funds. Who's to say what ESG is? Let's look at that. Environmental, social, governance real quick. Who's to say it's ever changing? What they expect from the environment is ever changing. We know climate change is their big push right now. You know, they failed on global cooling in the 70s. Global warming kind of took a hit. And they had to go to climate change because you can't argue climate change. Climate is always changing. You can't argue it. You can argue man-made climate change, but you can't argue the term climate change. It is accurate. It's always changing. So they get you there. This is how leftists get you. They give you actual truths, initially big truths that you can't argue. But then when you get into the brass tacks of their argument and you try to pick it apart, all of a sudden they just go back to the big truth. Well, you don't believe in climate change? It's like, no, I didn't say that, but you're wrong about this, this, and this. Oh, that just says you don't believe in climate change. You're a climate denier. That's how that argument always goes. It's not an argument. You can't discuss and debate people like that because they have no real answers. But anyway, so let's go through this. Environmental, you're living on an edge there because you don't know what the environmental factor is going to be at that moment. You have to move. Social is huge because we just saw social change and it's continuing. BLM had its moment in the sun, and they were very big. LGBTQ with the trans movement is gigantic right now. Feminism peaks its head. It's all of these things that continue to change. And you're going to run an investment portfolio based off of that type of change? That's what we're trusting right now? And then last, governments, I talked about it. When they say governments, they mean stakeholder over shareholder capitalism. And let me tell you, stakeholder capitalism is not capitalism, period. So that's what we have there. And the last thing I want to touch on with this housekeeping is if you don't go through the partners, it's pretty bizarre. Bank of America is there. Bank of America is one of the biggest banks in the world. JP Morgan Chase is there. Again, one of the biggest banks in the world, one of the big five in the United States. It is, I mean, it's pretty bizarre. And then mentioned in the article too that Equifax was teaming up with two other banks to go against this. Equifax is a part of the World Economic Forum. They're all in on this. It's all the same one thing, and it is a one world government organization. Don't think it isn't. They want to become global. It's global connections. It is global governance. ESG, creating an ESG for all of these companies involved, which are international. If they all go ESG, that is one solid framework to judge all business. And eventually, with things like ID.me, judge all of us. It's not a conspiracy anymore, everybody. It's out in the plain to see. You have to look for it for yourselves. I know Brian Stelter, do your own research is the worst thing in the American language. Brian Stelter's a moron. We know this. And guys like him are scared of people that can actually research because then you find out how much of an idiot he is and how wrong he is. So let's go to the crux of it. That was just some housekeeping from yesterday. I know it took a while. I get pretty worked up about that because that is some real world shit. So is what we have going on here. ABC News article written by Kate Kindelan. No more pencils in a shorter test. SAT to go completely digital by 2024. Excuse me? That was my first reaction when I read this. Now, just if you're listening, to give you a break, this is a shorter article, a lot shorter than the ID.me one yesterday. So it should be shorter from this point. So don't turn off the podcast after that and think Jesus is going to go on another long one. It shouldn't be that long. All right. So let's go with this article again. Kate Kindelan, no more pencils in a shorter test. SAT to go completely digital by 2024. Students filing into a building armed with number 2 pencils to take the SAT, the standardized test that could determine their futures, will soon be a thing of the past. Starting in 2024, the SAT will be taken exclusively on a computer, the College Board announced Tuesday. Okay, number 1, screw you guys. I had to do the number 2 pencil, go sit in a friggin' building I think I was at like a neighboring town. It wasn't even my own high school where I had to take the SAT on those crappy desks. That sucked. So I'm already annoyed because they have it easier than we do in that sense. Continuing. In addition to moving the test online, it will also be shorter, cut down from 3 hours to 2 hours, and will feature shorter reading passages that reflect a wider range of topics according to the College Board. So let's stop here. Making it shorter makes it becoming shorter partially makes sense just from the fact that you're eliminating writing, like pencil wise, which some people write quicker, but a lot of us are very computer oriented, especially kids these days. So they might type quicker. A full hour is insane. And then when you realize it's shorter reading passages that were quote unquote reflect a wider range of topics, what the fuck does that even mean? What wider range of topics? Why does that matter? Who cares? It's education. You're doing a standardized test. But shorter reading passages annoys me because that was part of doing the SAT. You knew you had that set amount of time and you needed to get done with long reading passages and break them down and answer the questions. I guess it's kind of the nature of the beast because they cut down the time, but it's still kind of nonsense that you're not already challenging these kids in reading comprehension. Let's continue. Students will also be able to use calculators for the test's entire math section. Are you serious? Are you serious? Not just for the fact that I didn't get to use a calculator, the fact that you should not be able to use a calculator unless stated, because some of the parts, I don't know if it's the SAT, I don't know if they do it, but I know some standardized tests, they quite literally say calculator use is accessible for this question only, and you're allowed to do it. Or this whole section is calculator section, you're allowed to do it. But the fact that you're allowed to use a calculator on the whole section is insane. How are you testing kids' actual math acumen if they're allowed to just punch in the formulas? That does not actually test if you are a good mathematician. I guess you have to know which formulas to use beforehand, but a lot of times on the SAT, they give you the formula. The whole purpose was to get the base formula and then learn how to apply it. So that right there is, these two paragraphs right here just said, we dumb this down because your kids, to make it easier on your kids, or we think your kids are stupid. One or the other. Let's continue. Quote, the digital SAT will be easier to take, easier to give, and more relevant, unquote. Priscilla Rodriguez, the College Board's vice president of college readiness assessment, said in a statement, quote, we're not simply putting the current SAT on a digital platform. We're taking full advantage of what delivering an assessment digitally makes possible. With input from educators and students, we are adapting to ensure we continue to meet their evolving needs, end quote. It kind of has to do with what I said last time with the stakeholder capitalism crap. This is it. The College Board is the one that's supposed to get the SAT. I understand taking inferences from educators because they're the ones that have to teach to it. But why the hell do students have a big say? Why is that a factor? Outside of it was difficult, it wasn't difficult, it was easy, it wasn't easy. Why should the drastic change why should they have a big say? Obviously, I don't mind them having a say, but I think there's some flaw in there with them having a big say. And the first statement, easier to take, easier to give, more relevant. Okay, easier to take, easier to give. We're always trying to go ease of access for a lot of things. Understand, that's my jealousy speaking when I hate it. But more relevant, what does that mean? What does more relevant mean? Is it going to be more socially conscious? Is that what they mean? Is it going to be more environmentally conscious? We could see kind of ESG right in here. I guess I might be reading into things here, but we can see it. We can see it. When they say words like more relevant, we know what they mean. That the examples are going to be more, more woke. Let's keep moving. Moving the test online will also shorten the time that students have to wait to hear how they did, with test scores now being returned in days versus weeks. That's pretty convenient. Kind of sucked waiting. The College Board tested administering. The College Board tested administering. College Board tested administering the SAT digitally last November as part of a pilot project. Sorry about fumbling there. According to the organization, 80% of students reported they found the digital test to be less stressful than taking the test in person, which was previously the only option. Now, I get that kids test poorly. I understand that people have testing issues, but that was part of the pressure. You were going to test to get a good score to go to a college, which you assume is going to be difficult and is going to have difficulties. This was the first difficult step to entering into a chapter of your life where you should have more difficult academic problems. but they're trying to make it easier so that people that are increasingly claiming that they have anxiety, depression, and, oh, I just have so much stress, can make it easier on them. And they put it online so that they don't have to do the stress of a classroom. Let's keep going. The online SAT will begin next year internationally and in the United States in 2024. Students will be able to use their own laptop or tablet to take the test or use a school-issued device. The College Board said it will provide a device for students who do not have one on test day. It's kind of sketchy to me that they're letting them use their own laptop or tablet. You don't know what they could put on there. The proctors are going to be under a lot more stress. It's real easy to hide windows and stuff like that if you know how to do it. So that's kind of pretty stupid on their part. But again, they're trying to make it easier. So I don't think they care if you cheat. Let's keep going. The SAT, along with its competitor, the ACT, has for decades been a required part of college admissions. That has changed more recently with more and more colleges choosing to go test optional, meaning they allow the student to decide whether or not to submit SAT or ACT scores with the application, which is terrible. Because their goal is not to get intelligent people into colleges anymore. And I know they're going to say, oh, we're just going on different basis of intelligence. Not everyone's a good test taker. We have some abstract people. And that's true. Not everyone's abstract, though. And the SAT is more abstract than the ACT. ACT is more of your science brains and your math brains. SAT is more of your history and your writing. So they already have two for the two different types of things. What's going to be next? You could submit your artwork and they're going to take it under review. Don't give them any ideas. They might do that. Continuing. In addition to individual colleges and universities making the decision, states including Iowa, Colorado, Illinois, and Montana have also required their state colleges to be test optional, according to Inside Higher Ed, an education-focused news publication. So what that just says is Iowa, Colorado, Illinois, and Montana just wants to get kids in their state colleges for numbers because they don't give a shit if they actually belong there or not. Continuing, the College Board said it recognizes the optional focus currently on higher education when making the changes to the SAT. Quote, in a largely test optional world, the SAT is a lower stakes test in college admissions. Submitting a score is optional for every type of college, and we want the SAT to be the best possible option for students, quote. Rodriguez said in a statement, quote, the SAT allows every student, regardless of where they go to high school, to be seen and to access opportunities that will shape their lives and careers, end quote. So let's also break down here something. Since the test is good, since a lot of schools are going test optional, SAT decided to make it easier so kids can get better scores so they can continue to be used and relevant. That's what a lot of this comes down to. When you read the rest of that and you get into the fact that test optional is a big thing and kids aren't submitting them anymore, blah, 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 blah. Don't be surprised if there's an ACT equivalent to this a few weeks, a month from now, something where they also go digital and dumb it down. Don't be surprised. Because SAT and ACT, they want to continue to be relevant. They make a lot of money. People pay a lot of money to take these friggin' tests. They're not free. They are not free tests. So you have to pay to take them because they're supposed to be college preparedness to see if you're ready for college. And if kids aren't taking them anymore, then these two companies, SAT, ACT, whatever company owns them, is going to go out of business. And there's going to be no more SAT prep or ACT prep courses that the College Board makes a ton of money off of offering, or a bunch of places. That's a money-making business. But if the optional stuff is going on and the SATs and ACTs are still difficult and still have a standard and still their scores still carry weight because they're hard, then most kids aren't going to take them. And they're going to go to schools that are test optional. And they're just going to go off their GPA in high school, which again isn't a terrible metric. But if you have a kid that doesn't challenge themselves in high school, that is smart, but decides to not take any APs or start skipping honors, and all of a sudden you're looking at a kid with a 4.0, but they were never challenged. But if they don't take the SAT or anything, all the schools are going to see is that transcript says 4.0. Well, let's take that individual, him, her. So the way this looks is this is sneaky. The SAT is not doing this to be more relevant. The SAT is not doing this to be friendlier to kids because taking tests are hard. The SATs are making their tests easier so their scores can go be better, so that kids can continue to put them on college applications and still want to take them. That's all it is. It is a money grab. We weren't making money because colleges didn't want us anymore. Now we're going to make money again because we just made it easier to access, easier to score higher on. And bada bing, bada boom, we're going to be relevant again and we're going to be used again. That's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is they just want to get your kids in college any sort of way, because college is no secret that have all become very left leaning with a very few exceptions. And put on your tinfoil cap here, they are attempting to make activists, not educated individuals, not citizens that were going into college. The original purpose of college is to create educated citizens to go in to the economy, to get good jobs and to continue to prosper and, make the countries that they're in better, the areas that they're in better. No, their goal now is to make them activists. There's a long line of literature about what's going on. I'm not going to get into it here. The podcast will be too long. If you want to know about this type of stuff, I do recommend listening to the new Discourses podcast with James Lindsay. He breaks down all of this stuff, along with the critical theories being in schools, which going to creep their ugly head around. I didn't have a chance. There's nothing in here about them, thank God. But yeah, they just want your kids to get into college. They're already starting to make activists in high school. They want to get your kids in college to fully make them into activists. And you'll see a ton of them running around. But ultimately, I don't know if that's the SAT's angle, but I know that's part of it. Just get these kids in school. But again, the SAT also just wants to continue to make money. This is a money grab. Make the test more accessible, make the test easier, make kids want to take us and use our scores. We're going to give them higher scores, whether they earn it or not, whether they're actually smart or not, because we need to continue making money off test prep and the test itself. All right, everyone. Thanks again so much for listening. I appreciate it. As always, I'll be coming back again tomorrow, but this time, hopefully I should be with David and we should be doing Alex Cuesta's show itself. So I'll be taking a break. I feel like 4 days a week with the articles, 1 day doing the show with David, and I should be back and it should be as fun as ever doing that, talking about a topic. I don't know what topic we're going to talk about, so I can't give you a sneak peek there, but we should be back. Again, I appreciate everyone. If you like what you hear, rate 5 stars on any wherever you use find this podcast. Like, share, follow, subscribe, whatever it is that you're on that you can do, and spread this word of mouth. Say, hey, that Alex Cuesta guy is not a complete moron. Go listen to him, and maybe some more people will. Again, socials. Go search up the Alex Cuesta Show. Not going to give you the socials because I don't want to. And that'll wrap up the show. I appreciate everybody for listening. I will talk to everybody, hopefully with David doing Alex Cuesta show tomorrow. So everybody, have a good one.